What if the official history of England's most famous mystery was a lie, meticulously fabricated to secure a king's throne? Join me in the quiet, candlelit archives of Tudor London, where we will assume the role of a humble document clerk. We will embark on a slow, deliberate journey, sifting through ancient parchments and forgotten records. Across 4 immersive episodes, we will uncover a truth so dangerous it has been buried for over 30 years, the story of a massive conspiracy designed to erase the very existence of 2 lost princes. This is a gentle mystery, a story not of violence but of whispers, paper trails, and the powerful, quiet knowledge of a secret. Welcome to The Lost Princes, a gentle mystery. You wake up not to an alarm, but to the cold, damp air seeping through the cracks of your small London house, the chill, a familiar companion in these early spring mornings of 1516. And your eyes open to the faint light of a pre-dawn sky filtering through a single grimy window pane. Outside, you can hear the first distant bells of St. Stephen's Chapel tolling for matins, their solemn chimes echoing across the silent city. Your breath hangs in the air before you in a faint plume of mist. Your body feels heavy, reluctant to leave the meager warmth of your wool blanket, but the routine of the Court of Chancery is an unyielding master. With a sigh, you rise, the floorboards groaning under your bare feet. You pull on your simple wool tunic and hose, the coarse fabric a reminder of your modest station. As a senior clerk, you have a reputation for meticulousness, a quality that pleases the king's master of the rolls, and you cannot risk tarnishing it with tardiness. You wash your face with icy water from a ceramic basin, the shock invigorating your senses. The scent of last night's extinguished tallow candle still lingers in the air, a greasy aroma mingled with the faint smell of old books and dried herbs. You light a fresh candle, its small flame casting dancing shadows on the walls, and sit for a moment to say a quiet prayer, offering thanks for the new day and asking for a clear mind for your work. The world outside is just beginning to stir. You hear the first shouts of a street vendor, the distant clip-clop of a horse on the cobblestones. You feel a quiet sense of purpose, of being a small but vital cog in the great machinery of the English law, and with that thought you extinguish the candle and prepare to leave for Westminster. You step out into the narrow, winding street, the air now a symphony of sound and smell as the city wakes from its slumber. The cobblestones are slick with dew and a thin layer of grime, and your leather boots make a soft, rhythmic padding sound. You pass by other houses with thatched roofs and wattle and daub walls, the faint glow of morning fires visible through their small windows. The smells are complex and layered, the acrid stench of wood smoke from countless chimneys, the sweet aroma of baking bread from a nearby bakery, and the pungent odor of the Thames, ever present and dominant. You follow the familiar path south towards Westminster, joining the growing stream of merchants, apprentices, and labourers making their way to the bustling heart of the city. You pass by the great Guildhall, its towering stone facade, a symbol of London's wealth and power, and you feel a fleeting sense of pride to be a part of this thriving, ever-changing metropolis. As you walk, you keep your mind focused on the work ahead, sorting through the mental list of pending legal briefs and archival requests. The sun begins to creep over the horizon, casting a golden light on the rooftops, and you feel the day's energy building around you, but you remain in your own quiet, contemplative world. You cross the London Bridge, the magnificent stone arches, a testament to human ingenuity, and you pause for a moment to look out at the grey-green expanse of the Thames River, its surface dotted with countless barges and boats. The sheer scale of it all is a humbling thought. You are but one person in a vast city, your work a single drop in the ocean of history. Yet you know that every drop, every single word you write, contributes to the great record of the realm. You continue on, leaving the bridge and its teeming crowds behind, your destination now in sight. You arrive at the great gates of Westminster Palace, the massive, imposing structure, a stark contrast to the small, humble world you have just left. The guards in their Tudor livery recognize you and nod as you pass. The familiar acknowledgement, a small but satisfying marker of your seniority. You make your way through the great hall, the vast space already filled with the murmur of courtiers and petitioners, their voices a low hum under the soaring wooden ceiling. But you are not here for courtly gossip or political maneuvering. Your work takes you to the quiet, dusty heart of the palace, to the archives of the Court of Chancery. You descend a narrow stone staircase, the air growing colder and smelling faintly of mildewed parchment and long dormant dust. Your private study is a small, solitary chamber, nestled deep within the archives, its only light coming from a high window that provides a thin shaft of morning sun. The familiar sight of towering shelves filled with leather-bound ledgers and neatly rolled scrolls brings a sense of comfort and purpose. You sit at your worn wooden desk, the surface smooth from years of use, and light a new candle to supplement the weak daylight. A young apprentice arrives, carrying a sealed bundle of documents, placing it gently on your desk before leaving you to your work. The master of the records has sent a note requesting a review of some of the older treason confessions, seeking precedents for a new royal decree. Your task is to transcribe key passages from these old records. You carefully break the wax seal on the first bundle, your fingers tracing the faint Tudor rose imprinted in the hard red wax, and inside you find the official record of Sir James Tyrrell's 1052 confession, a document detailing the murder of the princes in the Tower. You unroll the stiff parchment and the heavy scent of age. A mixture of dry ink, bone glue, and fine dust rises to meet you. The document, dated 5002, is titled The Confession of Sir James Tyrrell. The script is a precise, formal hand, the letters carefully formed, though the ink has faded to a soft brown with the passage of 14 years. You begin to read, your mind settling into the familiar rhythm of a clerk's work. The document recounts in careful, methodical detail how King Richard III ordered Sir James to kill the princes, and how he, in turn, enlisted 2 accomplices to carry out the deed. The names of the princes, Edward, late King Edward VIII, and Richard, Duke of York, are written with a solemn official gravity. You follow the narrative of the confession, transcribing the key facts onto a fresh sheet of paper with your own well-worn quill. It speaks of the smothering of the boys while they slept, and the hasty burial beneath a stone staircase in the Tower of London. Each detail is presented as fact, a solid and unshakable record of history as it was officially recorded by the Crown. You note the precise locations mentioned, the boys' chamber in the Garden Tower, the specific staircase, and the careful chronology of events. Your focus is absolute. You're only concerned to be a faithful and accurate transcriber, capturing every word, every phrase, every small detail. The only sounds in your quiet chamber are the soft scratching of your quill and the gentle, rhythmic hum of your own breath. The flickering candlelight makes the words on the ancient parchment seem to dance, a shadow play of historical truth. For a while, the familiar cadence of the work lulls you into a state of quiet focus, a mental space where there is only the text and your hand, until a particular phrase appears. You pause. Your quill hovers over the fresh sheet of paper, a single bead of ink suspended on its tip. A name written in the confession has caught your attention, not for its prominence, but for a nagging, subtle familiarity. The confession states that Sir James Tyrrell, on the night the princes were supposedly murdered, relied on a trusted archer to help him carry out the dark deed. The man's name is given as Walter, an archer from the king's retinue. The words are simple, plain, and meant to be a minor detail in a long official narrative, but your mind, a vast repository of names, dates, and locations, flags the name with a quiet alarm. You feel a prickling sensation at the back of your neck, a slow building unease. Where have you seen that name before? You have spent your entire career immersed in the minutiae of the kingdom's official records, and your memory is a carefully catalogued library of names, financial records, and legal judgments. The name Walter is common enough, but the specific mention of an archer named Walter feels distinct. You try to recall the context, but the memory is elusive, buried under layers of other documents and ledgers. Your breathing becomes shallow, your focus shifting from the words you are transcribing to the unsettling feeling that a small, insignificant piece of this grand historical account is wrong, fundamentally wrong. It goes against everything you have been trained to do, to ignore a discrepancy simply because it is a minor one. You cannot continue the transcription until you satisfy this intellectual curiosity, this quiet, insistent feeling that a truth is being hidden in plain sight. You extinguish your candle and leave the half-finished work on your desk. The master of the records can wait. You must find the answer to this disquieting feeling. You rise from your desk and make your way deeper into the archive, the stone floors cold and unyielding beneath your boots. The air grows even colder here, laden with the scent of paper and a profound sense of stillness. The shelves, stretching from floor to ceiling, contain the collective memory of the kingdom. You walk with a purpose you did not have a moment ago, a quiet but firm resolve. You recall a specific ledger you transcribed years ago, a comprehensive list of royal servants and their dates of service and, most importantly, the date of their deaths. You move through the endless stacks, your fingers running over the leather spines of countless books, searching for the one that holds the key to this mystery. Finally, you find it, a heavy, vellum-bound ledger containing the records of the royal household from the reign of Richard III. The book groans as you pull it from its resting place, dust motes dancing in the faint light. You carry it back to your desk and open it to the section on archers. You scan the names, your heart beginning a slow, deliberate thrum against your ribs. Your eyes finally land on the name you were searching for, Walter Archer. You hold your breath, your eyes fixed on the final column. There, in a precise, neat hand, is the entry. Died of a wasting sickness, March 1498. A profound silence descends upon you. The man who, according to the confession of Sir James Tyrrell, was a key witness to the murder of the princes in 1502, had been dead for 4 years before the confession was even given. A cold dread, far more chilling than the dungeon air, seizes you. The confession you hold in your hands, the solid official account of one of England's most enduring mysteries, is a lie. It is a fabricated document, a piece of political theatre created after the fact to provide a neat and tidy solution to an inconvenient question. And with that realization, your quiet world of documents and ledgers is forever changed. A profound silence descends upon your small chamber, broken only by the crackle of the tallow candle and the distant sounds of the palace. The world outside, with its merchants, courtiers, and clamour, seems to fade away entirely. You sit motionless, the weight of the open ledger and the confession on your desk pressing down on you. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated shock. The man you just confirmed to be a witness, a key piece of the official story, has been in his grave for 4 years before he supposedly gave his testimony. Your mind, trained for decades in the cold, hard logic of documents and dates, struggles to reconcile this impossibility. It is not a clerical error. The dates are too precise, the records too clear. It is a lie, a carefully constructed falsehood meant to deceive. You feel a strange physical coldness spreading from your fingers to your limbs, a chill that has nothing to do with the temperature of the stone room. The document, once a simple historical artifact, now feels sinister, a ghost of a conspiracy. You think of King Henry VIII, currently on the throne, his reign built upon the secure foundation of his father's victory at Bosworth and the subsequent clearing of any Yorkist rivals. The official story of the prince's demise was a pillar of the Tudor dynasty's legitimacy, a dark but necessary footnote to their rise to power. But if this document, this confession, is a fabrication, what other parts of the official history are equally untrue? Your initial unease morphs into a dangerous intellectual curiosity. You cannot ignore this. You feel a pull to prove the depths of this deception, to understand how far it goes. With deliberate, shaky hands, you close the old ledger and pick up the confession of Sir James Tyrrell once more, this time not to transcribe it, but to dissect it. You will not stop until you have exhausted every single name, every date, and every supposed fact it contains. The rest of the afternoon is spent in a quiet, obsessive search. You work with a focused intensity, your senses attuned only to the rustling of parchment and the scuffing of your own boots as you move between your desk and the towering shelves. The sun has long since passed its zenith, and the thin light from your window is beginning to fade, but you do not notice. The only reality for you is the systematic hunt for truth, buried beneath layers of Tudor lies. You reread the confession, this time looking for any name, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, that could be verified against the official records. You find another name, a minor gentleman at arms who, according to the document, provided a horse for Tyrrell's swift departure from the tower after the deed was done. The confession is so richly detailed, so full of small, believable facts, that it is designed to appear authentic. You pull a large financial ledger, an accounting of all the king's men from the 1490s, the paper thick and heavy in your hands. You find the name of the gentleman at arms in the records, but a small, neat crossmark beside his entry indicates a death from fever in 1496. Another impossible witness. The cold feeling you experienced earlier now returns, sharper and more insistent. It is a slow, creeping dread that takes root deep in your bones. You are no longer merely finding a clerical error. You are peeling back the layers of a massive historical cover-up, a conspiracy so vast that it has gone unchallenged for more than 30 years. You are in a sacred place of documents and law, yet you are unearthing a crime more profound than any individual act of treason, a crime against history itself. With a determined sense of purpose, you continue to search, methodically, relentlessly, for any other threads of truth that might unravel this great and terrible falsehood. The last of the daylight gives way to evening, and you finally light a fresh candle, its golden light creating a small, safe circle in the deepening gloom of your chamber. You have finished your initial cross-referencing, and the results are chillingly consistent. 3 of the primary witnesses, named in Sir James Tyrrell's 1502 confession, were already dead, one for over a decade, when their testimony was supposedly recorded. Each discovery feels like a blow against a foundation you have always believed to be solid and unmovable. The official history you have spent your life serving now feels less like truth and more like a carefully crafted fiction. You sit back in your chair, your eyes tracing the lines of the forged confession. The work is brilliant in its deceit. The small, believable details are all a part of a deliberate pattern to create the illusion of truth. This was not a document created in haste. It was meticulously and painstakingly fabricated by someone with a deep understanding of legal and administrative records. It was not intended to be a court record, but rather a final, definitive answer to a politically inconvenient question, a document to be sealed and filed away, a permanent marker of a closed case. But why? Why was the official confession needed so many years after the princes had supposedly vanished? The answer begins to form in your mind, a terrifying whisper. The confession was created because the disappearance of the princes and the subsequent rise of pretenders like Lambert Simnel continued to be a problem for Henry VII. The Tudor claim to the throne was not secure until the last embers of the Yorkist line were extinguished. You have stumbled upon the very mechanism of this historical sleight of hand, a document that proves that the official story was not a fact, but a decision. And now you hold a piece of evidence that could threaten the very legitimacy of King Henry VIII and the entire Tudor dynasty. Your quiet, peaceful life as a clerk is over. You have discovered a dangerous truth. Your quiet, methodical world of documents has been irrevocably shattered by a single, terrifying fact. The very foundation of the official history of the prince's disappearance is a lie. The man who supposedly confessed to their murder in 1502 was reliant upon witnesses who had long since been buried. You look back at the carefully formed script on the vellum, now seeing the words not as truth, but as a deceitful puzzle. The confession mentions Miles Forrest and John Dighton, two men Sir James Tyrrell allegedly hired to carry out the deed. A fleeting memory, a dusty name in a ledger you reviewed years ago, prompts you to rise from your desk. You walk with a new urgency, a profound sense of purpose replacing your earlier, leisurely pace. You pull a large folio from a high shelf, an old roster of the king's men from the reign of Richard III. Your fingers, usually so steady, tremble slightly as you turn the brittle pages, searching for the name of Miles Forrest. There it is, in a neat, spidery hand. Miles Forrest, gentleman. You scan the adjacent columns, your breath catching in your throat as you see the date of his death, recorded with official finality, 1484. He was dead within a year of the prince's disappearance, certainly long before the year this confession was supposedly given. The paper feels cold in your hands, its truth a chilling contrast to the warm, flickering light of your candle. It is a moment of perfect clarity. This is not a mistake. It is a deliberate and heinous deception. This conspiracy, this massive historical lie, was constructed after the fact, using the names of men who could not possibly testify, to provide a neat, tidy ending to a story that, it now seems, had no ending at all. You feel a profound sense of loss, as if a great, solid tower you have always lived within has suddenly been revealed to be nothing but smoke and shadows. The chilling realization settles deep in your bones, a cold that no woolen tunic or roaring fire can ever seem to banish. You are no longer merely a clerk. You are an involuntary participant in a historical crime. The confession is not just an old document, it is a weapon used to bury the truth, and you are holding it in your hands. You feel a growing, almost suffocating dread as you recognize the scope of the deception. It is not just one fabricated witness, it is a pattern of carefully chosen names, each one a dead man who could never speak to contradict the official story. You are surrounded by the quiet, dusty archives of the Crown, the supposed repository of immutable fact, Yet you have just discovered the single greatest lie ever recorded within these walls. Your mind races, making dangerous, frantic connections. Was every document from that period similarly falsified? Were there others who knew? The thought makes your heart pound against your ribs, a slow, frantic drum in the silent chamber. You feel a sudden, overwhelming urge to put the confession back, to pretend you never saw what you saw, to return to the peaceful, ignorant life you led just hours before. But you cannot. Your professional integrity, your commitment to the truth of the record, is a force stronger than your fear. You have a duty, not to a king or a dynasty, but to history itself. You must see this through, no matter the personal cost. You force yourself to breathe slowly, deeply, filling your lungs with the dusty, ancient air of the archives. You close your eyes for a moment, picturing the faces of the young princes, Edward and Richard, two boys now lost to time and a false record. You will not let their story be one of convenient political fabrication. You will find the truth, no matter how deeply it is buried. You spend the rest of the morning in a quiet, obsessive pursuit, the sun's thin light giving way to the warmer glow of a later morning. You do not stop for a morning meal. Hunger is a distant thought now, replaced by an insatiable thirst for truth. You pull other documents from the shelves, a meticulous search for any scrap of information that could corroborate your growing suspicion. You find a record of official payments made to a John Dighton from the reign of Richard III, confirming his existence. But a later, separate ledger from a small parish church in Kent contains a notice of his death and burial in 1490. He too was dead well before his supposed testimony in 1502. The evidence is mounting with a chilling, undeniable force. You feel like a miner digging for a vein of ore, only to find that the entire mountain is made of glass. Each piece of information you unearth shatters the official narrative further, revealing the terrifying emptiness within. You find a small coded notation in the margin of a record from 1502, a detail left by a previous clerk that references an unusual confession. This confirms your suspicion that you are not the first to find this strange discrepancy, but perhaps the first to pursue it. You begin to piece together a new narrative, a shadow history that runs beneath the official one. You realize someone had to have gone through the official records to find the names of dead men who could be used as witnesses. It was a painstaking, methodical process of fabrication, a vast and silent conspiracy of parchment and ink. The official story was not a mistake. It was an act of profound, deliberate deception. You feel a deep and unsettling sense of sadness for the princes, their very deaths, a political convenience, their memory erased and replaced by a carefully constructed fiction. You are now a keeper of a secret, and the weight of that truth feels heavy. The light streaming into your small study now has a golden afternoon quality, but you do not notice the passage of time. Your focus is singular, a tunnel vision of parchment and ink as you begin to search for a new category of evidence, the administrative records of the crown. You pull large, unwieldy financial ledgers from the early years of Henry VII's reign, their leather bindings cracked, and their pages filled with the meticulous accounting of every penny spent. You are looking for any entry that would signal the death of a royal personage. A proper royal funeral for the king's nephews would have been a massive affair, a procession of official mourning, requiring detailed records of expenditures. You would expect to find payments for the carving of a tomb, for the services of priests for memorial masses, for the heavy rolls of black cloth to drape the funeral procession, and for the cost of burial within consecrated ground, most likely in Westminster Abbey. You spend the next hour poring over these records, your eyes scanning each line item, each carefully recorded disbursement. But you find nothing. The records show payments for the care of the king's dogs, for the repair of a roof in the tower, even for a new tunic for a court fool. But there is not a single solitary reference to the burial of the princes, to the construction of a tomb, or to any of the expenses that would have been an unavoidable part of a royal funeral. The silence in the ledgers is more damning than any lie. It is the absence of an event that should have been documented in 100 different places. The official record of the confession is a forgery, created to give a sense of finality to a story that, in the ledgers of the crown, never actually concluded. The boys simply vanished from the official accounts, leaving not a single trace of their death. The scale of this systemic historical omission is beginning to feel like a suffocating presence in the room. Each new document you find, each new detail you uncover, adds another layer to the chilling truth you are unearthing. The cold dread that began with the discovery of one dead witness has now grown into a deep and abiding fear. It is no longer an intellectual puzzle, it is a terrifying reality. You are standing alone in a room of lies that have been preserved as history for more than 30 years. You are surrounded by the dust of a great deception, and the thought makes your hands tremble as you turn the pages. You find another document, a minor legal petition from a family whose land was confiscated by King Richard III. A small note in the margin references the petition's rejection on the grounds that the king's royal nephews are well and in good health. This document is dated 1485, 2 years after the princes were supposedly murdered. The note is in a hand you recognize, a minor court clerk who would have no reason to fabricate such a detail. The pieces are beginning to assemble themselves in a new and horrifying pattern. The princes were not dead in 1485. They were, according to this small forgotten note, still alive. The confession of Sir James Tyrrell, the official story of their deaths, was not a record of fact, but a carefully constructed lie to cover up their continued survival. You feel a sudden, overwhelming urge to weep, a profound sadness for the two boys whose lives became a political problem and whose memory was erased by the very institution sworn to protect them. The silence of the archives feels less peaceful and more menacing now. The walls seem to close in on you, and you feel a suffocating sense of loneliness, knowing that you, a simple clerk, are the only person who holds this dangerous and terrible knowledge. You are now a keeper of a forbidden secret. The sun has now completely set, and the weak light from your candle is all that remains. The world outside, the city of London with its noise and its people, feels impossibly far away. You are marooned here, in this small, quiet chamber, surrounded by the ghosts of a great conspiracy. You sit with the weight of your discoveries, your mind racing to connect the final pieces of this terrifying puzzle. You now understand why the confession was needed in 5002. The presence of pretenders to the throne, like Lambert Simnel and Perkin Warbeck, had haunted Henry VII's reign, constantly reminding the kingdom that the fate of the princes was never definitively known. The confession, with its specific, fabricated details and its dead witnesses, was designed to provide a final official end to the story, to put a seal on the mystery, and to silence all future dissent. It was a document born of political necessity, a lie intended to secure a dynasty. Your day began with a simple clerical task and has ended with a discovery that could unravel the very fabric of the kingdom. The official history taught in every school and preached from every pulpit is not what it seems. The princes did not vanish. They were simply erased from the official record, their true fate replaced by a convenient fiction. You carefully roll up the forged confession and place it back in its leather sheath. You will not destroy it. It is now a testament to the truth. You gather your things, your mind, a whirlwind of fear and intellectual clarity. You have gone from being a simple servant of the crown to a silent, knowing observer of its greatest deception. You leave your quiet chamber and step out into the long, dark corridors of the palace, the secrets you now carry, feeling heavier than all the books in the world. You leave your small, quiet chamber in the archives, the leather-bound documents and the forged confession, still a heavy presence in your mind. The long, stone corridors of Westminster Palace seem colder now, the shadows longer and more menacing as evening descends. You pass by courtiers and minor nobles, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of torches, their idle chatter and laughter sounding impossibly distant. Their world of silks, political maneuvering, and courtly intrigue feels like a dream compared to the stark, terrifying reality you have just uncovered. You make your way through the great hall, now quieter than it was this morning, its vastness filled with a different kind of emptiness. The light is fading fast, and you must move quickly to make your way back home before the streets become too dark and dangerous. Stepping out into the cool evening air, you pull your cloak tighter around you, the familiar sounds of London at dusk, a strange comfort. The scent of roasted meats and stale ale drifts from the taverns, mingling with the earthy smell of the river. The bells of St. Mary le Bow begin to toll the hour, their sound a deep, resonant hum that vibrates through the very ground. You walk with a new purpose, your head down, avoiding eye contact with the few people still on the streets. You are no longer a simple clerk, a small part of the great tapestry of the Tudor court. You are a keeper of a terrible secret, a solitary figure who now sees the very foundations of the realm as a fragile, carefully constructed lie. The weight of this knowledge is a physical burden, heavier than any ledger you have ever carried. You cross over London Bridge once more, the Thames below a black, glistening ribbon in the twilight. You think of the princes, their very existence erased from the official record, their memory replaced by a political convenience. And you think of the king, the great and powerful Henry VIII, whose father's reign was secured by this very lie. What would happen if he knew you held the key to the truth? The thought sends a cold shiver down your spine, and you quicken your pace, a sense of quiet desperation beginning to build within you as you approach the safety of your home. You are home, but you cannot rest. The familiar comfort of your small, quiet house feels foreign to you now, a thin and fragile shell against the terrifying truth you have just uncovered. You sit by the hearth, the small fire offering little warmth as your mind races with the events of the day. You see the faces of the dead witnesses in your mind's eye, their names, their dates of death, all neatly recorded in the silent, impartial ledgers of the crown. You recall the chilling absence of a single record of a royal funeral, a fact that speaks louder than any official document could. The conspiracy is not a single act of deception, but a systematic campaign of historical erasure, a carefully orchestrated plan to replace the truth with a convenient falsehood. You pour yourself a cup of stale ale, but the drink does nothing to calm the wild, frantic beating of your heart. What do you do now? Your professional duty is to the record, to the truth, to the integrity of the law. But your personal duty is to your own life, to your own safety. To reveal what you have found would be to risk everything, your livelihood, your good name, even your very life. To challenge the official narrative of the Tudor dynasty is to challenge the king himself. You are a simple clerk, a man of parchment and ink, with no power, no allies. The men who created this lie, the men who silenced the princes and buried their story, are still in the shadows, their influence still a presence in the court. You imagine one of Henry's agents at your door, their quiet questions, their cold, impassive faces. The thought is enough to make you feel faint, with a fear so deep it is almost a kind of despair. But an equally powerful emotion begins to rise within you, a fierce and unyielding conviction. The truth is what matters. The truth is what you have always served. To turn away now would be to betray your very soul. You must continue, not for your own sake, but for the sake of the princes, for the sake of history itself. You must find more. You spend a sleepless night, the forged confession, a physical presence in your mind, and you rise with the same chill morning air and the same distant bells, but you are a changed man. Your work today is no longer a simple duty, it is a secret, dangerous obsession. You go to Westminster, not as a loyal clerk, but as a silent conspirator, your mind now a fortress of secrecy. You must be cautious. You can no longer simply ask for any document you please. Your interest in the prince's affair would be noticed, and the master of the records, a man who values order and quiet authority, would surely report it. So you work with a new, subtle cunning. You find a plausible reason to be in the Star Chamber archives, feigning an interest in a minor case from the early years of the last century. A case that would require a review of a wide variety of official documents. It is a perfect ruse. The Star Chamber holds records of all kinds, including those from criminal proceedings and treason trials. You pass through the vast hall and descend into the deep stone vaults of the archives. The smell of dust and old paper is a comfort, a familiar shield behind which you can do your dangerous work. Your new focus is on Sir James Tyrrell's arrest and execution. The confession was said to have been made in 1502, but his execution was carried out with surprising speed. A man of his rank would have been given a public trial, a show of justice for the king's court. But there was no such thing. You find a record of his arrest and a warrant for his immediate execution on a separate charge of treason, unrelated to the princes. This is the truth, buried beneath the official narrative. Tyrrell was killed not for confessing to the murder of the princes, but for a different crime entirely, a crime that would make his swift death less suspicious. The confession was a post-mortem fabrication, a lie told over a dead man's grave. Your research into Sir James Tyrrell's death brings you to an even more chilling realization about the Tudor state. The official account of his execution for the prince's murder is a public-facing lie. As you meticulously review the court records and execution warrants from 1502, you find no mention of a public trial or a formal sentencing for regicide. Instead, you uncover a far more subtle and insidious truth, buried in the records of the Tower of London. You find a series of sealed orders, signed and stamped with the royal seal of Henry VII, that command the master of the Tower to secure and detain Sir James Tyrrell for an unspecified charge of treason and to execute him immediately upon the completion of a secret proceeding. The speed of it all is alarming. A man of his former status, a knight and a loyal servant of the crown, would have been given a public show of justice, a trial in open court to demonstrate the king's authority. But there was no trial. There was no public declaration of guilt for the prince's murder. There was only a swift, silent, and final act of state. The master of the records, a man who values order and quiet authority, would surely have been told to make the necessary entries, and you find them neatly filed away. You realize with a cold and sickening certainty that Tyrrell's confession was not the reason for his death, but was a product of it. He was killed for a different reason entirely, a reason you may never know. The official story of his confession was then released after the fact. A convenient narrative created to give the public a sense of closure to a politically inconvenient mystery. It was a perfect piece of Tudor bureaucracy. Solve two problems with a single act. silence a dangerous man and definitively close the case of the princes in the tower, all while appearing to have secured justice. It is a brilliant and terrifyingly cold-blooded maneuver. The weight of this final, terrible truth settles upon your shoulders, heavier than any load of books. The confession was not a record of a crime. It was a final, definitive story, crafted to end all speculation and cement the Tudor narrative. You sit back in your chair, the silence of the archives wrapping around you like a shroud. You now see the document for what it is, a political necessity, a piece of grand theatre designed not for legal record, but for public consumption. Henry VII, a king whose claim to the throne was tenuous at best, was haunted by the ghosts of his predecessors. He had survived rebellions from men who claimed to be one of the lost princes, men like Lambert Simnel and Perkin Warbeck. The kingdom was still uneasy, and the legitimacy of his reign was a source of constant whispered doubt. He needed to provide a definitive, unassailable answer to what had happened to the boys. A confession, even one built on lies, was the perfect solution. It would satisfy the people and silence his enemies once and for all. It was a final, grand act of political theatre, a definitive declaration that the sons of Edward IV were no longer a threat. The confession, with its specific, fabricated details and its dead witnesses, was designed to provide a final official end to the story, to put a seal on the mystery, and to silence all future dissent. You now understand the profound intelligence and chilling ruthlessness that went into this document's creation. It was a masterful piece of propaganda, a lie so large and so complete that it was accepted as truth. And you, a humble clerk, have just discovered the great silent lie upon which a dynasty was built. The knowledge feels like a heavy weight in your hands, a truth too immense for one man to carry. The afternoon wears on, and your mind is now consumed by the terrifying scope of this deception, a lie so grand it has been taught as history for more than 30 years. The thin, golden light from the high window has faded, and the room is filled with long, shifting shadows cast by the flickering candle flame. The familiar scent of old paper and leather that once brought you comfort now seems to carry the faint, ghostly scent of political intrigue and buried secrets. You no longer see the archives as a peaceful repository of knowledge, but as a silent testament to the Crown's power to bend truth to its will. Every document you touch, every ledger you consult, now feels suspect. You wonder how many other histories have been quietly altered, how many other inconvenient truths have been buried in the vaults of Westminster Palace. The knowledge feels like a terrible burden, and your professional pride, once your greatest comfort, now feels like a dangerous liability. Your meticulous nature, the very quality that led you to this discovery, now makes you a threat. You are a man who looks too closely, who sees the cracks in the grand narrative. You feel a deep and profound sadness for the princes, their very deaths, a political convenience, their memory erased and replaced by a carefully constructed fiction. Your entire professional world has been turned upside down, and you know there can be no turning back. Your conscience will not allow it. You must find more evidence. You must understand the full truth of what happened to the boys. You carefully roll up the forged confession and place it back in its leather sheath. You will not destroy it. It is now a testament to the truth. You gather your things, your mind, a whirlwind of fear and intellectual clarity. You have gone from being a simple servant of the Crown to a silent, knowing observer of its greatest deception. You leave your quiet chamber in the archives, the forged confession and the knowledge of its purpose, a heavy presence in your mind. The long stone corridors of Westminster Palace seem colder now, the shadows longer and more menacing as evening descends. You pass by courtiers and minor nobles, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of torches, their idle chatter and laughter sounding impossibly distant. Their world of silks, political maneuvering, and courtly intrigue feels like a dream compared to the stark, terrifying reality you have just uncovered. You make your way through the great hall, now quieter than it was this morning, its vastness filled with a different kind of emptiness. The light is fading fast, and you must move quickly to make your way back home before the streets become too dark and dangerous. Stepping out into the cool evening air, you pull your cloak tighter around you, the familiar sounds of London at dusk, a strange comfort. The scent of roasted meats and stale ale drifts from the taverns, mingling with the earthy smell of the river. The bells of St. Mary le Bow begin to toll the hour, their sound a deep, resonant hum that vibrates through the very ground. You walk with a new purpose, your head down, avoiding eye contact with the few people still on the streets. You are no longer a simple clerk, a small part of the great tapestry of the Tudor court. You are a keeper of a terrible secret, a solitary figure who now sees the very foundations of the realm as a fragile, carefully constructed lie. The weight of this knowledge is a physical burden, heavier than any ledger you have ever carried. You cross over London Bridge once more, the Thames below a black, glistening ribbon in the twilight. You think of the princes, their very existence erased from the official record, their memory replaced by a political convenience. And you think of the king, the great and powerful Henry VIII, whose father's reign was secured by this very lie. What would happen if he knew you held the key to the truth? The thought sends a cold shiver down your spine, and you quicken your pace, a sense of quiet desperation beginning to build within you as you approach the safety of your home. You are home, but you cannot rest. The familiar comfort of your small, quiet house feels foreign to you now, a thin and fragile shell against the terrifying truth you have just uncovered. You sit by the hearth, the small fire offering little warmth as your mind races with the events of the day. You see the faces of the dead witnesses in your mind's eye, their names, their dates of death, all neatly recorded in the silent, impartial ledgers of the Crown. You recall the chilling absence of a single record of a royal funeral, a fact that speaks louder than any official document could. The conspiracy is not a single act of deception, but a systematic campaign of historical erasure, a carefully orchestrated plan to replace the truth with a convenient falsehood. You pour yourself a cup of stale ale, but the drink does nothing to calm the wild, frantic beating of your heart. What do you do now? Your professional duty is to the record, to the truth, to the integrity of the law. But your personal duty is to your own life, to your own safety. To reveal what you have found would be to risk everything, your livelihood, your good name, even your very life. To challenge the official narrative of the Tudor dynasty is to challenge the king himself. You are a simple clerk, a man of parchment and ink, with no power, no allies. The men who created this lie, the men who silenced the princes and buried their story, are still in the shadows, their influence still a presence in the court. You imagine one of Henry's agents at your door, their quiet questions, their cold, impassive faces. The thought is enough to make you feel faint, with a fear so deep it is almost a kind of despair. But an equally powerful emotion begins to rise within you, a fierce and unyielding conviction. The truth is what matters. The truth is what you have always served. To turn away now would be to betray your very soul. You must continue, not for your own sake, but for the sake of the princes, for the sake of history itself. You must find more. You spend a sleepless night, the forged confession, a physical presence in your mind, and you rise with the same chill morning air and the same distant bells, but you are a changed man. Your work today is no longer a simple duty, it is a secret, dangerous obsession. You go to Westminster, not as a loyal clerk, but as a silent conspirator, your mind now a fortress of secrecy. You must be cautious. You can no longer simply ask for any document you please. Your interest in the prince's affair would be noticed, and the master of the records, a man who values order and quiet authority, would surely report it. So you work with a new, subtle cunning. You find a plausible reason to be in the Star Chamber archives, feigning an interest in a minor case from the early years of the last century. A case that would require a review of a wide variety of official documents. It is a perfect ruse. The Star Chamber holds records of all kinds, including those from criminal proceedings and treason trials. You pass through the vast hall and descend into the deep stone vaults of the archives. The smell of dust and old paper is a comfort, a familiar shield behind which you can do your dangerous work. Your new focus is on Sir James Tyrrell's arrest and execution. The confession was said to have been made in 1502, but his execution was carried out with surprising speed. A man of his rank would have been given a public trial, a show of justice for the king's court. But there was no such thing. You find a record of his arrest and a warrant for his immediate execution on a separate charge of treason, unrelated to the prince's. This is the truth, buried beneath the official narrative. Tyrrell was killed not for confessing to the murder of the princes, but for a different crime entirely, a crime that would make his swift death less suspicious. The confession was a post-mortem fabrication, a lie told over a dead man's grave. The absence of evidence is itself a form of evidence, and you begin to search for the records you know must exist. The Court of Chancery, and indeed all royal offices, are meticulous in their record-keeping, a vast and complex tapestry of every penny spent and every action taken. You pull the financial ledgers and administrative records from the years 1483 and 1484, searching for any mention of the prince's passing. A royal funeral would be a monumental event, a spectacle of state that would require countless expenditures, payments for the funeral shroud, the coffin, the burial plot, the tolling of church bells, the ceremonial procession, and the fees for the mourners and priests. Yet, as you turn the pages, there is nothing. The ledgers are filled with the usual daily disbursements, payments for soldiers' wages, new tapestries for the court, the cost of spices for the royal kitchens, but there is no entry, not a single shilling, allocated for the burial of the two royal princes. The glaring omission feels louder than any trumpet blast. You find records of other, less significant burials from the same period, meticulously documented with every last farthing accounted for. A servant of the court, a minor noble, a distant relative of the king, all have their funerals and their costs dutifully recorded. But for Edward V and Richard, Duke of York, there is nothing. The silence in the record is chilling. It is as if they were not mourned, not buried, not even acknowledged as having died. It is as if the royal administration simply chose to act as though they had vanished into the thin London air. The official story of their death is a lie, a carefully constructed narrative that has no financial or administrative foundation to support it. The lack of a single official document acknowledging their passing speaks volumes. They were never publicly or officially put to rest, which raises a terrifying question. If they were not buried in the Tower, as the official narrative claims, where did they go? You return to the official confession of Sir James Tyrrell, the document that has now become the focal point of your investigation. You have already uncovered the inconsistencies in the witness accounts and the chilling circumstances of Tyrrell's execution, but you feel compelled to look closer, to examine every single detail. You hold the parchment in your hands, the stiff, brittle paper, a tangible link to a 30-year-old deception. You run your fingers over the vellum, feeling the slight indentations left by the quill. As you move from the initial paragraphs, where Tyrrell's name and the circumstances of his arrest are recorded, to the main body of the confession, you notice something subtle, something almost imperceptible. The handwriting changes. It is a slight change, a tiny detail that most would never see. A shift in the slant of the letters, a different flourish on the capital I, a variation in the thickness of the ink. The hand that wrote the initial details of the confession is professional and uniform, a standard court scribe's hand. But the hand that details the specific, fabricated circumstances of the prince's murder is different. It is more practiced, more elegant, and the script flows with an almost artistic confidence. It is the work of a master craftsman, a man who has spent years perfecting his ability to replicate any hand, any style of script, to perfection. A cold knot of certainty forms in the pit of your stomach. This is not the writing of a man confessing to a terrible crime, scribbling under duress. This is the work of a professional, a silent artist of the written word. It is a detail so small, so subtle, that it could only have been discovered by a man with your particular expertise, a man who has spent his life working with the vast and intricate archives of the realm. The change in the handwriting is the final piece of evidence you need, a silent, damning witness to the forgery. You know this hand. You have seen it before in the margins of documents, in the quiet corrections of legal ledgers, in the carefully copied letters of state. It is the hand of Master Edward, a senior clerk who retired from court 10 years ago and was known for his incredible skill in emulating the handwriting of others. He was a man with a reputation for meticulousness, a man who could copy a document so perfectly that even the person who wrote the original would not be able to tell the difference. He was the perfect man for such a task. The realization strikes you with the force of a physical blow. The confession of Sir James Tyrrell, the document that has served as the official and unassailable truth of the prince's fate for decades, was not written by a dying man confessing to his sins. It was written by a master forger, a quiet man who spent his life in the shadows, creating beautiful lies for the state. You now understand the full and terrifying scope of the conspiracy. It was not simply a matter of silencing a few witnesses or creating a single false document. It was a complete and total fabrication, a meticulous and artistic act of historical erasure. You see the years of planning, the careful orchestration, the chilling ruthlessness of it all. The document you hold is not a record of a murder. It is a declaration of power, a testament to the fact that the Tudors could not only win a war and seize a throne, but they could also rewrite history itself to suit their needs. And the truth, the real truth of what happened to the princes, was carefully buried beneath this mountain of lies, lost to all but a handful of people in the court. You are one of those people now, a silent witness to a truth so dangerous it could cost you your life. The document you hold is not a record of a crime, but a meticulously constructed lie, created after the fact to provide a convenient, tidy end to a politically dangerous mystery. You sit at your desk in the quiet of the archives, the flickering candlelight illuminating the forged script, and you feel a profound sense of awe at the audacity of the deception. This was no hurried act of political expediency. It was a masterful work of historical revision. The very dates, the places, the names of the dead witnesses, all were carefully chosen to create an illusion of truth. The official confession of Sir James Tyrrell was designed to be unassailable, a document that could be presented to the world as the final word on the prince's fate. You think of the scholars and clerks who have come before you, who have read this very document and accepted it as fact. They were not fools. They were simply not looking for a lie. They were looking for the truth, and they found a carefully constructed fiction that mirrored it perfectly. The men who created this document knew what they were doing. They knew that people would believe what they wanted to believe, and they provided a narrative that was both plausible and politically necessary. The Tudor dynasty, still young and fragile, could not afford to have a lingering mystery about the fate of two princes who held a more legitimate claim to the throne. The confession, with its specific, fabricated details and its dead witnesses, was the perfect solution. It put a definitive end to the whispers, silenced the pretenders, and cemented the king's claim to the throne. The document in your hands is a monument to that deception, a testament to the fact that history is not just a record of what happened, but a story told by those with the power to write it. The very paper, the ink, the script, they all feel like a cold and silent accusation. You feel a profound sense of moral conflict, torn between your professional duty to maintain the records of the crown and your personal conviction that you must seek the truth. The knowledge is a heavy burden, a dangerous secret that could cost you your life. To reveal what you have found would be to accuse the Tudor dynasty of forgery and murder, an act of treason so profound it would certainly lead to your execution. You are a simple clerk, a man of parchment and ink, with no power, no allies. The men who created this lie, the men who silenced the princes and buried their story, are still in the shadows, their influence still a presence in the court. You imagine one of Henry VIII's agents at your door, their quiet questions, their cold, impassive faces. The thought is enough to make you feel faint with a fear so deep it is almost a kind of despair. But an equally powerful emotion begins to rise within you, a fierce and unyielding conviction. The truth is what matters. The truth is what you have always served. To turn away now would be to betray your very soul. You cannot go back to your quiet life, to the comfort of your small, ordered world. That world is gone, replaced by a terrifying new reality. You have seen the lie at the heart of the Tudor dynasty, and you cannot unsee it. You feel a deep and profound sadness for the princes, their very deaths, a political convenience, their memory erased and replaced by a carefully constructed fiction. Your entire professional world has been turned upside down, and you know there can be no turning back. Your conscience will not allow it. You must find more evidence. You must understand the full truth of what happened to the boys. You carefully roll up the forged confession and place it back in its leather sheath. You are a silent, knowing observer of the crown's greatest deception, and with that knowledge comes a terrible responsibility. You lock the documents away, your mind a whirlwind of sleepless worry, realizing you now hold a secret that could threaten the very legitimacy of King Henry VIII and his entire dynasty. As you leave the archives, you pass through the great hall of Westminster, now dark and silent. The torches have been extinguished, and the only light comes from the moon, casting long shadows across the empty space. You think of the millions of people who have believed this lie for the past 30 years, and you know that you are now a keeper of a dangerous truth. You walk home in the dark, the cobblestones cold and slick under your feet, your mind racing. You cannot simply go back to your quiet life and pretend this never happened. The thought is impossible. Your sense of duty, your passion for historical accuracy, will not allow you to rest. You remember a small detail from a merchant's will you reviewed a few months ago, a minor document that you had forgotten about until this moment. It mentioned a legacy left to a small church in London, a legacy that included a golden chain said to have belonged to a young prince. You had dismissed it at the time as a sentimental exaggeration, a proud boast from a common merchant. But now, after what you have seen, the words return to you with a new and terrifying significance. A golden chain said to have belonged to a prince. It is a detail that simply should not exist if the princes died in the tower. The princes were stripped of all their possessions, their very existence erased from the royal records. There should be nothing left of them, nothing at all. Yet here is a reference to a golden chain, a small, insignificant detail that speaks a terrible and undeniable truth. The truth, you realize with a sudden, sharp clarity, is not just in the documents that were destroyed or forged. It is also in the forgotten, physical remnants of a past that someone tried very hard to erase. You know now where you must begin your investigation. A paper trail that will lead you not to a grave, but to a hidden collection of impossible artifacts. Your heart pounds in your chest, and you know there is no turning back. You will find out what really happened to the lost princes, and your journey has only just begun. Now, as the final candle in the archives flickers out, the truth you've uncovered casts a long and dangerous shadow. The official story of the lost princes, once a cornerstone of history, has been revealed as a lie. You stand at a precipice, with a secret so profound it could bring down a dynasty. But this is not the end of the story, it's just the beginning. In the next episode, we will leave behind the archives and follow a new trail of clues, a trail of physical artifacts that should not exist. We will find out what happens when the truth of the past refuses to stay buried. Join me next time for The Artifacts, a Gentle Mystery. Please give us a like and subscribe. See you in the next episode.